Hi guys, today we'll be doing a 9015 unit standard. It's apply knowledge of statistics and probability. It's level NQF level 4. It has 6 credits. It's in the field of physical, mathematical, computer, and life sciences. This unit standard is designed to provide credit towards the mathematical literacy requirement for the NQF level 4. The essential purpose of the mathematical literacy requirement are that as the learner progresses with confidence through the levels, the learner will grow in a confident, insightful use of mathematics in the management of the needs of everyday living to become a self-managing person, an understanding of the mathematical application that provides insight into the learner's present and future occupational experiences, and so develop into a contributing worker. The ability to voice a critical sensitivity to the role of mathematics in the democratic society and so become a participating citizen. People credited with this unit standard are able to critique and use techniques for collecting, organizing, and representing data, use theoretical and experimental probability to develop models, make predictions, and study problems. Critically interrogate and use probability and statistical models in problem solving and decision making in real world situation. Session 1, critique and use techniques for collecting, organizing, and representing data. Learning outcomes are situations or issues that can be dealt with through statistical methods are identified correctly. Appropriate methods for collecting, recording, and organizing data are used so as to maximize efficiency and ensure the resolution of a problem or issue. Data sources and databases are selected in a manner that ensures the representativeness of the sample and the validity of resolutions. Activities that could result in contamination of data are identified and explanations are provided of the effects of contaminated data. Data is gathered using methods appropriate to the data type and the purpose for the gathering the data. Data collection methods are used correctly. Calculations and the use of stats are correct. Graphical representation and numerical summarizers are consistent with the data, are clear and appropriate to the situation and the target audience. Resolution for the situation or issue are supported by the data and are validated in terms of the context. Interpreting and analyzing data are proven. Problem-solving processes that are essential for dealing with information presented in many different forms, including but not limited to graphs and the tables. Visual displays of data are found in reports and in the media, often being used to make decisions or to determine whether to support or reject arguments. Problem-solving process. The world stats may bring to mind polls and surveys or facts and figures in a newspaper article, but stats is more than just a bunch of numbers. The stats is a problem-solving process that seeks answers to questions through data. What do you think of when you hear the word stats? Four things make a problem statistical: the way in which you ask the question, the role and the nature of the data, the particular ways in which you examine the data, and the types of interpretations you make from the investigation. A stats problem typically contains four components. Number one, ask a question. Asking a question gets the process started. It is important to ask a question carefully with an understanding of the data you will use to find your answer. And number two, collect appropriate data. Collecting data to help answer the question is an important step in the process. You obtain data by measuring something, gathering information pertaining to the problem, situation, or even through sampling, which is another way to collect data. Number three, analyze the data. Data must be organized, summarized, and represented properly in order to provide good answers to stats questions. Also, the data you collect usually vary, i.e., they are not all the same, and you will need to account for the sources of this variation. And number four, interpret the results. After you analyze the data, You must interpret it in order to provide an answer or answers to the original question or problem situation. From the recognition of trends to extracting patterns and extrapolating from the data are higher order problem solving components of data interpretation and analysis. There are four forms of models which could be used to present and display information for analysis. Let's look at the examples, and you'll go through the examples on your own. The line graph is a way to summarize how two pieces of information are related and how they are varied depending on one another. There's an example of one in the description. You'll go through that on your own. And the pie chart. A pie chart is a circle graph divided into two pieces, each displaying the size of some related piece of information. Pie charts are used to display the size of parts that make up some whole. As an example, you go through that on your own. There's three examples. You'll go through that on your own. A bar graph consists of axes and a series of labeled horizontal or vertical bars that show different values for each bar. The numbers along the side of the bar are called the scale. There's an example of that. Two examples, you go through that on your own. Session 2. Use theoretical and experimental probability to develop models. Learning outcomes, the experiments and simulations are chosen and or designed appropriately in terms of the situation to be modeled. Prediction are based on validated experimental or theoretical probabilities. The results of experiments and simulations are interpreted correctly in terms of the real context. The outcomes of experiments and simulations are communicated clearly. In your groups that are formed, you've got 5 groups. You think of a general stats question that could be answered through your analysis. Think carefully about the 4 steps listed on page 9, not page 36. Answer the questions below to prepare your stats, your strategic analysis of data to solve the problem or stats question. Question 1, step 1. Select the problem situation for data collection, organizing, and analysis. What is the problem situation or stats question? Write a brief description below. On your groups, you'll find the findings, gather information, and then according to what you have chosen, based on what is required, you'll write the information on this bars. Question 2, identify required data and relevant sources for analysis and presentation. What data needs to be collected for analysis and presentation in your model? Also list the sources of your data. Question 3, model, present, and analyze data. Which format will you use to model your data to present it accurately for analysis? How will you analyze the data? Write a brief description. And then question 4, step 4, interpret the results or solutions derived from analysis of data. How will you interpret the results from the analysis? How will this provide a solution to the problem or answer the stats question? Write a brief description below. And yep, that's it for this group work. This will prepare you for the formative assessment. So basically you'll have to, in the groups that are formed, I've sent you the link, the WhatsApp message. So now you have to think about 4 steps that are listed on page 9. These 4 steps. These 4 steps. Now you need to critically carefully think about these 4 steps. Ask a question, collecting appropriate data, analyze the data, interpret the results. These are the 4 steps that you have to think carefully about to answer the questions below to prepare for your strategic analysis of data to solve problem or statistical question. So the step one, you have to select the problem situation for data collection and organizing and analysis. What is the problem situation or stats question? Write a brief description below. Okay. Okay, guys. Basically, what they require here in this activity, you have to think of a general stats question. For example, you can think of the current pandemic that we're in, the coronavirus. You can derive stats question from that situation, uh, and then you have to answer these questions based on that question, on that stats question. You have to write to answer to say what is the problem of that situation or stats question, based on the corona. Why are we having number of 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 corona cases, people who are getting corona decreasing or increasing? You'll have to write a brief description below. And question 2, you need to identify required data and relevant sources for analysis and presentation. What data needs to be collected for analysis and presentation in your model? Also list the sources of your data. For you have to identify the required data, the number of data, maybe the data that you have findings for is from stats SA, so you list that as your relevant source for analysis. And question 3, model present and analyze data. Which format will you use to model the data to present it accurately for analysis? Maybe say I'll use a bar graph or a line graph or a pie chart. So that's where I will present my data. Then question 4, you need to interpret the results or solution derived from analysis of data. Will you interpret the result from the analysis? How will this provide a solution to the problem or answer of the stat question? So this is more of a thesis. It's more of a thesis to answer your question, to answer the question that you have answered, to say we have managed to use a bar graph which symbolizes the number of decreases on the corona. So you have to provide a solution to the problem and answer the stats. So it's more of a thesis, if I'm correct. So yes, project 1, you need to complete your own analysis of a problem situation. This project will do on your own. On a stat question, you may select the 2 topics, the crime and health, and take note of the following guidelines when completing your project. You will need to collect data from reliable source of information to present in your model. You will also choose to complete your own project on a separate sheet of paper and attach it to your portfolio of evidence. And alternatively, you can present your data and analysis in the space provided. So in this project, what you need to do, you have to choose one of the topics, crime or health, and then you need to collect data from a reliable source. Whether you could go to Google, find a reliable source that provides information, data about that, and then provide it as your activity. So this is compulsory, you have to do this. And yes guys, let's move into probability models and demonstration. Introduction. A probability model is a mathematical representation of a random phenomenon. It is defined by its sample space, events within the sample space, and the probabilities associated then with each event. So a sample space S for a probability model is the set of all possible outcomes. For example, suppose there are 5 marbles in a ball. One is red, and one is blue, and one is yellow, green, and purple. If one marble is to be picked at a random from the ball, the sample space possible outcomes will be red, blue, yellow, green, purple. If 3 of the marbles are red and 2 are blue, then the sample space S will be red, blue, since only 2 possible color outcomes be possible. If instead 2 marbles are picked from a ball with 3 red marbles and 2 marbles, then the sample space will be S sample space equals to 2 red and 2 blue, and 1 red and 1 blue, the set of all possible outcomes. An event is a subset of the sample space. Suppose there are 3 marbles and 2 marbles in a ball. If an individual picks 3 marbles, one at a time, from the ball, the event pick 2 marbles can be achieved in 3 ways. So the set of outcomes will be event A, red, 2 red and blue, red, blue, and red, blue, red, and blue, red, red. The sample space for picking 3 marbles one at a time is all of the possible ordered combination of 3 marbles, which is sample space S is 3 red and 2 red and 1 blue, red, blue, red, and blue, red, red, and blue, blue, red, blue, and so forth. Since there are only 2 blue marbles, it is possible to achieve the event blue, blue, blue. A probability is a numerical value assigned to a given event. The probability of an event is written as the probability of A and describes the long-run relative frequency of the event. There are 2 basic rules for probability, rule 1 and rule 2. Rule 1, any probability is a number between 1 and between 0 and 1, which probability of event is less or equal to 0, or greater or less than equals to 1. And rule 2, the probability of the sample space is equals to 1, which is probability of the sample space is equals to 1. An example, suppose 5 marbles, each of a different color, are placed in a bowl. The sample space for choosing one marble from above is S. Red, blue, yellow, green, and purple. Since one of these must be selected, the probability of choosing any marble is equal to the probability of the sample S. Suppose the event of interest is choosing the marble purple. The purple marble A, purple, if it's equally likely to that one marble will be selected, then the probability of choosing the purple marble is half, as 1 over 5. In general, the following formula describes the calculation of probabilities for equally likely outcomes. So for probability, this is just a formula for the above. So section 3, critically interrogate and use probability and stats models. Stats generated from the learning outcomes. Stats generated from the data are interpreted meaningfully, and interpretations are justified or critiqued. Assumptions made in the collection or generation of data and stats are defined or critiqued appropriately. Tables, diagrams, charts, graphs are used or critiqued appropriately in the analysis and representation of data, stats, and probability values. Predictions, conclusions, and judgments are made on the basis of valid arguments and supporting data, stats, and probability models. Evaluation of the stats identify potential sources of bias, errors in measurement, potential uses and misuse, and their effects. This you'll read on your own. Read the following presentation of the information carefully, then answer the question to follow to create your own analysis of data presented in the study. So it's South African population. Please go through this on your own and answer the questions below. This is the preparation for your formatives and a summative. So if you were to skip this activity, you will find difficulties in answering your formative and summative. So please go through this on your own, read and answer the questions. And yep, we are done with this unit standard. Let's go to our formative. Formative assessment. Code activities. Complete the questions as per instruction provided. Identify three situational issues in your workplace that can be dealt with through stats methods, and in each case say what type of routine stats would you gather. So you will form those situations. Think outside of the box. You think of any situation that you have encountered before, or you have seen, or you've been told by someone close to or your friend, and then write that situation and issue and the type of stats that is required, and explain how forecasting plays a role in your business unit and organization. You'll explain that. Read the following article written by the Stats General of SA and then answer the questions that follow. You'll read that on your own and answer the following questions. Explain what is meant by a trend in paragraph 1. What trend has been identified by Stats SA according to this article? Explain what is meant by a series in paragraph 5. Refer specifically to the series mentioned in the article. Not the series. Please, guys, follow instructions. Refer specifically to the series mentioned in the article. List the indicators of depth mentioned in the article. Explain the difference between a census and a sample. You want to undertake a stats study to absenteeism in a company. Would you take a census or a sample? Give reason to your answer. You choose that. If you take a census, give reasons, or a stats, please give reasons. In order to collect representative sample from a team or business unit, how many members would you have to survey? Explain how you arrived to that figure. In order to collect a representative sample from a company, how many employees would you have to survey? Explain how you arrived to that answer. In a group work, as I've mentioned on the WhatsApp group, this will require, as I've already grouped you guys, choose a topic that relates to your class. If you want to determine the number of people who are in favor of abortion among the class members, or the number of happily married learners, or the education level of learners in the class. In fact, any topic of your choice, you will choose within the group of the group that I've allocated to you. You'll choose a topic of your own choice. Drop questionnaire using the Dr. Thomas key, about 5 sets of questions. Do a quick survey and present your findings to the class. So you use the questionnaire, this table, and in 20 minutes draw up a 10-point checklist that will help you determine if questions meet the criteria as set out in your learner guide. The Likert scale. A survey attempted to evaluate student interest about a range of classroom topics. Students were asked to rank their interest in various potential topics according to the scale. 10 if they felt the topic was very interesting. 6 if they felt the topic was above average interest. 4 if they felt the topic was below average interest, and 1 if they felt the topic was not worth studying in class. Please note that only 4 responses were permitted. This Is this an acceptable survey? Design, explain your answer. So you'll explain based on this survey design whether is it acceptable or not. If it's acceptable, you need to explain that. If it's not, you need to explain that. And then yes, when interviewing your team for the purpose of your survey, do you think that they could possibly be biased from either from either your side or their side? Discuss possible reasons for the bias based on the information in the learner guide and any other causes of bias that you may be aware of. 5.1. Here are the test scores for a class of learners. What is an average score mean of the class for the test? Is the sequence written in ascending or descending order? Determine the median. Let me just give you a hint on the average score mean. You'll have to add each and every number and divide by that number. If let's say for instance these numbers are 100, so you calculate 100 plus 100 plus 99 plus 80 and so forth divided by 100. That will be your average score mean. And then you, if is the sequence descending or ascending, ascending is in order from 1 to 0, descending is from 100 going down. So determine the medium score, the middle number from these. So if there are 100, if there are 10 samples, if there are 10 numbers, your middle number, it will be between number 5 and number 6. So you'll have to calculate to say, okay, from here, let's say maybe this is our middle number. So if you've got two numbers, you'll add these two numbers and you divide it by 2. If you've got one number, you just put that number only. So did James obtain a mark of 90 and Petros obtained a mark of 79 for the test? How would you describe their result in relation to the mean? You will answer that. In order to get a better idea of how a given data points relate to other data, it is important to get an idea of how spread out the data are. One way of doing this is by using the range. The range is the distance between the highest and the lowest data points in a set. What is the range of scores for this test? It's pretty much more simple. You take the first and the first and the last, and you give your range. Group work, I don't want to give you answers, guys. Group work, find out how each learner in the class is planning a phase. First, decide on the quickest and the most effective way to obtain the required information. How can you ensure that the information is accurate and representative? And obtain and sort data. Calculate the average age mean of the learners in this class. Calculate the median of the ages of all the learners. Show the sequences in ascending order. Analyze data. What conclusions can you reach based on the data? Reflect on the process you follow to obtain the information. Was it effective? Were the response cooperative? And what would you do differently next time? Let's see. Find how old each learner in class is. So you will, let's say for instance, we've got a class in grade 12. We've got learners who are, let's say for instance, we've got 10 learners that are above the ages of 18. So you count that number and then you do according to that. So first decide on the quickest and most effective way to obtain the required information, whether you do it randomly or there are different types of stats that you could use, whether you do it randomly search, you go to each class and then you count randomly, or you do it based on a class list where you given, so you group those learners based on the class list and so forth. You'll think other ways, and then you'll have to obtain and then sort data. If maybe the data, you got the data as it is, you need to sort the data, calculate the average mean of the learners in the class, calculate the median of ages of all learners, show the sequence in ascending order from 1 to 100. If the data you collected was in descending order, make it in ascending order. Analyze data. What conclusion can you reach based on the data? If you find the findings that you figured out that there are little number of learners that are above the ages of 18, that will be your analysis based on the data, or below and so forth. Please do this in a group work, not individually. Reflect on the processes you follow to obtain the information. Was it effective? If it was effective, yes. If it's not, show other ways or means that you can do better on the process you followed. Where the respondents cooperative, what would you do differently next time? 6.1, draw a reasonably accurate pie chart by hand based on the following data: absenteeism due to transport problems. Maybe we could change this to say absenteeism due to network, but no, I'm joking. Due to transport problems, illness, training, family commitment. Give your chart a title that accurately reflects the kind of data represented. Guys, if you did not manage to go through those examples on your own, you struggle to complete the formative assessment. Uh, 6.2, give an example of the type of data in the workplace that you would represent with a bar chart or a line chart or a scatter diagram. Scatter diagram is the line where your points are just scattered. There's an example of a scatter diagram. Your lines are scattered. It's the form of a line chart, but it's not. You don't join your points. Your findings are just scattered. So you leave the way it is. So that is a scatter plot. It's different from the line chart and the bar chart. Um, Read the following article written by the Stats General of SA, paying particular attention to this explanation of limitation of stats information, and then answer the question that follow. And read that on your own. Explain how the representative of sample has grown from 4.7 million STE findings to 6.559 SEE to the current 7.075 million QES findings. What categories of length of workers have been excluded from the QES and why? You need to explain that. Information regarding employees, employers, employees, and the self-employed is obtained by conducting surveys. What is the frequency of these surveys? Why should they be conducted frequently? C, what is the size of the sample? D, do you think that it is a representative sample? Give a reason for your answer. What are some of the problems regarding choosing a sample for this nature? And do that. 7.3, what are the limitations for time series that has only 2 data points? On a lighter note, if a statistician had the hair or his hair or her hair on fire and her feet in a block of ice, she would say that on average she felt good. Okay, yes, we're done, guys. Let's go to the summative assessment. Question 1 for summative assessment. What do you think of when you hear the word stats? Question 2. The following table illustrates the products are sold in Vues Shebeen. and the number of customers who purchase these pearls in a single day. Can you illustrate the above table as a pie chart? Yeah, you do that as a pie chart. And question 3, the table below represents your daily expenses for the period 1 January to 6 January. Can you illustrate the above as a bar chart? Question 4, what is the probability of rolling a die, of rolling 3 on a die, plural dice? So if you're rolling a die 3 times, that's what they simply mean. So you use what we have done, probability of a sample size or an event that we have done 3 times, using those rules of probability, the rule 1 and rule 2. So if I roll the dice, what will be the outcome of the first one? Will it be, I don't know, tails, a dice, a plural die, a plural dice. A plural dice, I assume it's your normal dice. So if we we roll it 3 times, what will be the probability? Yep, what will be the probability if we have 6 numbers? What will be the probability of those numbers, the outcome, the event? Question 5, look at the graph below and answer the question that follow. What was Mabel's highest pulse rate? What was Albert's highest pulse rate? And what was Mabel's lowest pulse rate? And what was Albert's lowest pulse rate? So Mabel, it's the one in the red, and Albert, Mabel is a 36-year-old officer worker, and Albert is a 26-year-old former college athlete. So Albert is the one in green, and the pulse rate in beats per minute, exercise and pulse rate. So you will answer that by referring to the graph. Describe what happens to the Albert's heart rate during exercise. Yep. Look at the graph below and answer the questions that follows. Which fertilizer was the most effective and which fertilizer was the least effective? So the average height in centimeters and the effect of the fertilizers on bean plant growth. We've got the greenish bloomers and the job house plant spikes. The miracle grew, the Kmart fertilizer, and a no fertilizer. So which was the most effective fertilizer? I think the most effective fertilizer is the miracle grew, and the least, I think the least is the Kmart. I don't know, guys. You do the summative. I think maybe you'll answer that better. Yes, guys, that's the end of the summative. So I think we might have a session on some of the things. But if we all in the same page, I think you can do this. I trust you well. You can do this, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you guys when you submit on Tuesday. Thank you, guys.